So guys, we've got more major intel that is absolutely huge, absolutely critical when it comes to college football realignment. How about the Big 12 commissioner coming out and saying this conference is no longer going to be stagnant, basically saying, listen, we are expanding. We want the 4 schools from the Pac-12, and we've got a full interview here. You can see this question, you get a lot of attention on Media Day for your quote, Big 12 is open for business comment. How has that been received? And this is Brett Yormark's response, the new Big 12 commissioner who we know. And guys, I've detailed the Big 12 strategy and what they're going to do. They want to expand. They don't want to make the same mistake the Pac-12 did last year when the Pac-12 could have squashed the Big 12 after Texas and Oklahoma left and the Big 12 was reeling. There was an opportunity for the Pac-12 to take a few Big 12 schools. They didn't take advantage of it. The Big 12 doesn't want to make that same mistake. They want to be the third premier college football conference. And he says it's been received, I think, in a very positive way. Open for business doesn't mean just expansion, where I think some people read into it that it was very much focused on expansion. That's not necessarily the case. When I say open for business, it means this conference is no longer going to be stagnant. We're going to be very proactive. We're going to explore and identify any and all opportunities that create value in every respect, aka they're totally open for... This whole comment was about expansion. So he's trying to walk it back, but then by trying to walk it back, he's basically reaffirming we're being proactive. We want teams in this conference. That's what I'm reading into this. Is expansion part of open for business? 100%. But it's only a small piece. So that's, to me, that's a bunch of BS. I think the open for business thing is we want teams, we're making it public, and those 4 teams would be Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. But that was his quote there. We've also got this, which kind of leads into my next question. 5 years from now, after every Power 5 conference, except perhaps the ACC, has had another round of multimedia right negotiations, what do you think college athletics will look like in terms of conference configurations if we're sitting here in 2026, 2027? He says, I don't have a crystal ball for that. But if you're asking where I would like to take the conference, where we would like the conference to go, listen, we want to be the most vibrant Big 12 that we can be. If that means expansion, having a presence in the most important markets, that's certainly going to play a major role in where we're at in 5 years. Certainly when you think about the multimedia rights deal, I am very much focused on it. The ESPN and the Foxes of the world will be very important partners for us. So blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's saying it's in the Big 12's best interest to expand and kind of set themselves up as a major player in the world of college football. The one interesting question I would ask him, being the Big 12 commissioner, would be, how worried is the Big 12 that they don't have a true blue blood Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Alabama type team? I think that really hurts the Big 12 when it comes to their TV negotiations. You could argue any number, 3 or 4 or 5 teams, is quote unquote the Big 12's current biggest team when Texas and Oklahoma leave. There's going to be a lot of parity within the conference. But I think the one thing that holds them back, and this could be the major issue when it comes to the whole ACC thing, remember, if the ACC votes to dissolve, would it really make sense from a money perspective for possibly 4 teams from the ACC to join the Big 12, knowing that it's going to dilute the every team's share even more? If the Big 12 gets to 20 teams, I think they really struggle with that. And I think the one reason the Big 12 is going to really struggle with a new TV deal and really making a lot on it is due to the fact that they don't have 1 or 2 teams that you know is going to bring in the fans. They don't have a Michigan. They don't have an Ohio State. So while there's so much parity in the league, and I've done videos, I did a whole 20 team or 16 team possible, tier ranking of the Big 12. And it's a great league if they go to 16 teams with, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. The one issue is there's no super team. So that's the one big problem. But he's basically saying, listen, we want an expansion. We've been public with that. We're not making the same mistake the Pac-12 did. And then they go on to ask him, is there an ideal number of schools you see for the Big 12? 16. On principle, do you think 20 or something like that number is doable? He goes on to say, I haven't really looked into the numbers. I find that very hard to believe, that he hasn't looked into the numbers. But he goes on to say that if they're going to add teams, they want the teams to add teams that are going to add value to their conference. If you're adding certain teams, at the end of the day, it could just dilute the conference. That was the whole idea of only adding 2 teams, not 4, if they wanted to do that. But to me, it still seems like, at the end of the day, I think the most realistic scenario for the Big 12 is adding the 4 Pac-12 schools that we've discussed. There is the issue with possibly adding those 4 schools, it diluting the overall TV money for every team within the conference. That was the whole idea of maybe they only add 2 schools because then they would receive a little bit of a bump. But if they added all 4, it would dilute the conference. So that's basically what he's saying when it comes to the Big 12. The big takeaway, they're open for business. He said that at media days. He comes back and he's basically saying the exact same thing. He's just trying to police it a little bit better. But the Big 12 understands if they want to survive in the world of college football, they need to add schools. That is the bottom line. And then we've got this, and guys, this is one of the saddest things when it comes to college football. This was last week, this broke. And this was obtained by Sports Illustrated. It's a letter that went out from the NCAA to member schools asking for additional assistance in NIL cases and all the infractions. And if you're not following recruiting, guys, it is such a mess. And this is such a sad little thing from the NCAA. On behalf of the NCAA member schools, the national office is working hard to pursue potential violations related to the NIL policy. The enforcement staff understands the need for action and the urgency in this environment. And guys, basically, there's no way to police it at this point. NIL and booster cheating is basically like a cancer that is spread throughout half of college football. And it's at the point to where, at what point are so many people cheating and breaking the rules to where you can't arrest them? You can't hold them accountable. And it's like a cancer. It's spread to so many different parts of the NCAA. There's nothing you can do to police any of this stuff. The only thing I think the NCAA can do at this point is set up sensible laws, NIL laws, that could possibly go into effect in 2024. But I mean, when you've got Texas A&M, you've got Miami, you've got Florida, you've got Tennessee, you've got Oregon, all blatantly booster cheating. And the worst part is fans don't understand what NIL is. There's some fans, a lot of SEC fans, that think it is totally legal for a booster to offer a 5-star athlete an NIL deal if he commits to the university. They think that's legal, and Texas A&M fans thought that was legal. That's why they were bragging for for a few months about spending $25 million on their recruiting class. Then Jimbo Fisher comes out and says, hey guys, you probably shouldn't be bragging about that. It's really not legal. And then the fans shut up about it. But there was a good stretch where Texas A&M fans were literally saying, yeah, we spent $30 million on our recruiting class. What are you going to do about it? It's the most blatant, obvious cheating. One single team signs, I think it was 4 5-star defensive linemen. The most, just so bad. And I'm not just saying it's Texas A&M. It's a virus. It's a horrible virus throughout all of college football. And I understand paying the players, and they say I'm a hypocrite. And guys, I do admit I am a capitalist. I love it. Make your market value, whatever. But I can also sit here and understand giving a 17-year-old kid $2 million is probably not going to end well. Let's be real. We all remember when we were 17 years old and how brain dead we were. And I'm not saying these kids are stupid. When you're 17, you have such little life experience, you're going to make bad decisions. Let's call it what it is. So that is the unfortunate update on the NIL cheating. And then we've also got this email that I got, guys, and I'm not sure how legitimate this is, but it says the ACC Grant of Rights, there's no 8-team out, meaning we were all understanding that potentially if 8 teams agreed, they could dissolve the Grant of Rights deal and leave the ACC. 8 teams had to agree, but apparently this individual says, I have read the copy online available. There is no 8 schools can vote to end the Grant of Rights provision. I don't know the source of that, but it may have been an inaccurate assertion made in line and then picked up by other people. So, and then he says, think about it. No way ESPN would agree to termination by basically one more than a simple majority. Yeah, if there's 14 teams in the conference and all you need is 8, that did strike me as a little odd. You would think if you wanted to dissolve a Grant of Rights deal that ends in the year 2036, you would need more than the simple majority. Because the simple majority, I believe, yeah, it's 8 out of 14. It's just over 50%. You'd think it'd have to be like 12 or 10 or something like that. So this is a very interesting thing. I was just sent an anonymous email from someone. I don't know how real it is, but it is interesting to think about. Because the whole Grant of Rights thing, if it is 8 teams, there is still a hurdle, but you can already see how it could work out with the 4 teams going to the SEC. The bottom line with the whole Grant of Rights deal, it needs to be renegotiated. It needs to be looked at. Whether or not the ACC actually dissolves, it's a lot of speculation. I don't think it would dissolve before the year 2026 or 2027, but the Grant of Rights thing is an issue because teams like Clemson and Florida State are going to look at what other teams are making, and they're either ESPN's going to have to give them a better deal. They're going to have to try and do unequal revenue sharing. I don't know what the solution is. I know there's been rumors that they want to try unequal revenue sharing. I do not think it would work in the ACC. I think it would work in the Big Ten, but it would not work in the ACC because you're going to dilute teams like Wake Forest even lower to where it makes sense for them to actually leave the conference and make more money by going to the Big 12. So it is a complete mess right now with the ACC, and we will see if they can actually get out of the whole Grant of Rights issue. Just something I saw that I thought was interesting. And then we also do have this, just showing the lack of parity in college football. The last time Power 5 teams were number 1, I mean, it's pretty crazy, man. You've got Alabama 2021, Clemson 2020, Ohio State 2015. I thought Ohio State was number 1 in maybe even like 2017, 2018. Oklahoma 2011, Georgia 2021, and then pretty much everyone else outside of LSU and Mississippi State, who was 2014 with Dak Prescott. There's just 2 or 3 teams or 3 or 4 teams that are just ruling college football right now. And if you want to be really particular about it, it's really just one team. It's Alabama. Now, Alabama doesn't win the title every year, but there is a significant lack of parity. And even teams like Ohio State, you think they're so talented. The last time Ohio State was number 1 was 7 years ago in the AP poll. The last time Oklahoma was number 1 was a decade ago. Like, some of this stuff is crazy. But I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to show it, and you can see some of the other schools there. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.